Welcome to the Feisty Women's Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Sara Gross, Ironman champion, PhD in women's history, and founder and CEO of Feisty Media. I started this show because I wanted to cut through the BS of diet culture and fitness culture and actually learn from high-achieving women at the top of their game who have figured out how to feel and perform their best at every stage of life. So I chat with experts, elite athletes, and leaders who have learned to succeed despite the massive gender data gap in exercise and medical science and product development. Every episode is filled with information, advice, and anecdotes that will help you fulfill your potential as an athlete, mom, leader, or business owner. And listen up. If you don't subscribe to our Women's Performance newsletter, you are definitely missing out. It's totally free. So head over to womensperformance.com and subscribe now. That's womensperformance.com. This podcast is a production of Feisty Media. Hello, Feisty people. I am so glad you're here. I'm Sara Gross, and this is the Women's Performance Podcast. Is anyone feeling stress or anxiety about something right now? How are you holding your shoulders? Are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? Is your breath shallow or deep? Today I'm talking to Stephanie Green about breathwork. Before today's recording, I really had no idea how life-changing breathwork could be. But as you will hear, I experienced firsthand during the recording how calming my nervous system through breathing could reverse engineer a notable boost in my mood. And if I can relax and lift my mood with something as simple as breathing, I am all in. Stephanie is a Vancouver Islander who lives in Nanaimo. She's an ultra runner and mountain biker turned multi-day adventure racer. Like so many of my guests, Stephanie learned how to overcome patriarchal notions that limit women's potential and used growth in physical strength and skill to propel growth in the mental and emotional realm. So, breathe deep, relax, and enjoy the episode. Stephanie, hi, welcome to the Women's Performance Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You know, before the show, just now we were chatting and you said something. You said, women don't know how good they are at adventure racing or at stuff like adventure racing. And immediately I was like, oh, I think I know what she means, but can you unpack that?
For sure. So I think for so many reasons, so for adventure racing, for people that don't know what that is, it's a little bit of like a fringe sport where you're on a team of people. It's kind of like a triathlon, but a little more feral is the way of putting it.
And you don't get to go to bed at night. Instead, you just keep racing.
Keep going. Yeah. So you're racing, like the clock starts and you just begin racing. So I do a lot of expedition style adventure racing, which is usually like 3 to 6 days. So you've got your team of 3 to 4 people, and it's all map and compass work, and is a variety of disciplines like mountain biking, often like trekking, whether it's whitewater paddling, flat water paddling, there's some rope sections and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it is a sport that's traditionally been very, very male dominated. Yeah.
As they all have.
As they all have.
For the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. And even so much that like to be considered elite and to have spot on podiums or win prize money, you have to be a mixed gender team.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. But generally, so it's been one woman, like most of the teams I've raced on, it's been one woman, three males. And like they used to call women mandatory gear. Like you needed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like you needed mandatory gear of your like survival blanket, your knife, like, and your woman. And it's so ridiculous to me, especially with the longer adventure races, because women just shine. Like women are such badasses.
Yeah.
Like, and whether that's like I think it's a combination of physiological things. Like we have a lot more of that slow twitch. We're really good at pacing ourselves. Our ability to work in a team environment, our ability to suffer. Like, thank you, patriarchy. Like, I feel like,
Develop for our well-developed ability to suffer.
right?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And to do it with a smile, but
Yeah.
right? But all those things come into play. And like I've seen it like time and time again where you're like on course and like it longer it goes, like the women just seem to shine.
Mm.
Right? Like it's
So
really cool.
where did that come from? The idea come from that? What did you say about the women being that?
Oh, mandatory gear.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like I think that there's yeah, like this still weirdly pervasive thought that like
Hmm.
women aren't strong, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I mean, one
Absolutely
time,
ridiculous.
yeah, one time years ago, there was like, when I was living in the UK, it was like a multi-stage run race. Nothing like a feral triathlon, just like a kind of a running, but it was a relay type thing. And you had to have at least one woman on your team. And
Huh.
like three different groups called me to try to recruit me to their team. And like they used to say like you were as slow as your woman or something. Like there was some weird phrase that, and I was like, fuck you. Like
Yeah.
I'm a better runner than a lot of these guys. Like, like screw off. Anyway,
Oh,
that kind of reminded me of that.
oh, totally.
Hmm.
It's so bizarre to me. Like I had an experience 2 years ago and had a teammate who I ended up having like I have a very soft spot in my heart for them, but they're pretty abrasive and like remember telling me to avoid like before the race to avoid all roots and rocks on my mountain bike and like
Avoid. Don't roll
yeah,
over them. Just avoid them.
just avoid them and like, take it easy. I'm like, you have no
Oh,
idea, like I mountain bike on Vancouver Island. Like,
yeah. Yeah, there's no
yeah, I'm
avoiding the roots and
pretty
rocks. Yeah.
pretty comfortable, pretty confident. And I'm like, you would never say that to a
That's
man.
actually just,
You
it's
would
just
never say it.
Yeah, and it's actually just now we're just starting the podcast with a small rant session, but
I'm like, I'm in.
but it's like that's actually I don't mountain bike, but I know enough about it to know that that's terrible advice. Like if you're trying to avoid obstacles, you could go off in any direction off a cliff, but like that's just not good advice.
It was not sound advice at
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Um, okay, let's go back. Like you said,
Okay.
you took up adventure racing in your 40s, right? So where did you come from? Like, did you play sport as a child? How did you go like through to take up mountain biking to adventure racing? And that's a huge question, but tell us your story.
Well, when I was growing up, my dad and my uncles owned an outdoor store in Vancouver.
Mhm.
And so I kind of had like these folks that like, were climbers and skiers and bikers. And I sort of had this growing up, like, oh my gosh, like I want to be like them. Like I remember seeing a picture of Lynn Hill,
Mhm.
like climber, and just being like, who is that amazing, amazing woman? Like I want to do that. But I think hard when you're an entrepreneur, like they didn't have a lot of time to like foster that in us. And I think also different
Yeah,
generation, like it just wasn't seen. I don't think it was seen that I had the potential to be an athlete or I had
right.
that potential to be, yeah, an adventure athlete. But it was always like that's always been like I've always loved, loved, loved being outside. I've always loved like anything outside and active and always like, yeah, wanted to be in that world. And then it wasn't until I think I started running after I had my son at 24 or 25 and discovered running and discovered that I loved it. Like, what is this whole world? And that just started like opening up more and more doors. And then I ended up teaching yoga. And through yoga, I just go down weird tangents of learning. And I just started
Mhm.
to get into like partner acrobatics.
Mhm.
And then turned into learning how to slackline to highlining.
Oh, wow. Okay, I can see where the skill sets, being developed through all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
then met folks who were like, hey, like they're adventure racers in the US. They're like, we're putting on a race. You should come and do this thing.
Mhm.
And I had done one shorter adventure race that I've heard of Momar. It's on Vancouver Island. Anyways, awesome. They do
Sorry.
no, so good. They're just neat people. It's a short, really fun adventure race. And I'd done that. I bought a bike and done that a couple years earlier. And that had sort of sparked me into learning how to mountain bike, which was super empowering.
Mm-hmm.
That I hadn't been on a bike since I was 12. And then in my mid 30s, taking up mountain biking and breaking myself so much, like just point and shoot. Like totally recommend to anyone who's thinking about learning, take a lesson.
Does that stuff come naturally to you? Because I know, look, I was a triathlete and I've ridden bikes a lot in my life. And yet mountain biking somehow just, it's like a whole different beast, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was scared.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. How did you handle that? How did you handle learning that?
I think I was in that perfect place of being passionate about it and not knowing enough that I was willing to take risks. So now looking back, where I'm like, and having skills and be like, why did I, oh my gosh, I'm really lucky I still have teeth. Like,
Right.
But I think just being really, really curious. And I love learning new skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with mountain biking, that was such a cool piece that it's like, it's a fitness piece. It was really, really social. It was like outside and muddy. And there's so many women I've talked to who mountain bike that's just like, that's where you just feel like you're sexiest, right? When you just got like mud on your face. Yeah. So you're like ripping downhill and you're like cranking up and it just feels good, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so another thing I've always wondered about adventure racing, which I've never got to ask someone. So like it's for me that I used to say like because I did Ironman, like my adventure can last one day.
Yeah.
But then I want to like have a proper meal and go to bed. Like, you know, like how do you prepare for and deal with sleep deprivation?
I think being a mom helped. So it gave right. So again, there's another like tick in the box, like for that, like having that experience, like knowing that you can do more with less and that you're okay. Knowing it's not forever. And it's just honestly, so much of it is mindset. Like once you get in, I think past 24 hours, like it's just a mental game. Like,
right.
And you just decide, like you just kind of decide there's no off ramp and you just keep going and you just break things down smaller into like tiny little, like usually for me, it's snack goals. Like,
yeah. Like get to the like literal snacks, like get to the next snack.
I'm like 45 minutes. Mom's going to eat again. Sweet. We can do this. Perfect. Just keep moving forward.
Right. And when you're choosing, you know, a race to do, like, and you're looking at the race, do you choose them based on some like other, do you sometimes have to learn a new skill or do you choose them based on things that suit your strengths or different? Do you know what I mean? Like this one has whitewater kayaking. This one has, I don't know. I don't know what all the, like more mountain biking or how do you pick what you're doing?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think I've traditionally just said yes to things and then figured it, like freaked out, said yes, enthusiastically say yes.
Yeah.
Realize the reality of it, freak out, source out learning the skill, and then do the thing. So like the last race I did in Mexico in November had a canyoneering section. I've never been I didn't even know what canyoneering was.
I don't. Can you tell me?
It's so fun. So it's going through it's like traveling through a canyon. So like you'd be like often like rappelling down waterfalls and then like swimming through pools or caves and like jumping off cliffs and things like that. So you're kind of just following the flow of water all the way down with a variety of you're wearing like a wetsuit and you've got your harness on and your backpack and your helmet, your life jacket.
Right. Okay. I could picture this. Is it sometimes like where I'm picturing this sort of like Indiana Jones style, where you're then like, you have to swim from one canyon to the next.
Yeah.
Underwater. Is that a thing?
Kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
But like minus the hat, but yes.
Right. Minus the hat. Yeah, of course we could leave the hat behind.
Yeah.
As we head into summer, rest and recovery are critical for improving sports performance, reducing stress, and living a long and healthy life. We should all invest in better sleep. So, think about the thing you lay your head on for 8 hours a night. If it's not exactly right for you, it can lead to needless tossing and turning, or worse, have you waking up with an unrelenting kink in your neck. My new Lagoon pillow has helped me improve my sleep immensely by pairing me with the performance pillow that has everything I need. So I personally was matched with the Otter pillow. Shout out to Team Otter, which I love because it has a gentle cooling effect. And I was able to choose how much stuffing I wanted in it, which is super important to me because I'm doing a decent amount of CrossFit these days and my shoulders are kind of creaky. So having a pillow that is stuffed just to the right height keeps my neck and head in exactly the right position and comfortable for the entire night. And as of fall 2023, Lagoon launched their 100% mulberry silk pillowcases. It's cool to the touch, buttery soft, and great for your skin and hair. You've got to go check out this pillowcase if you want to feel great and look great every morning. Waking up for morning workouts has never felt better. I'm refreshed and pain-free thanks to my Lagoon pillow. To check it out for yourself, go to lagoonsleep.com/performance and take the 2-minute sleep quiz to find your perfect pillow match. And then use the code PERFORMANCE for 15% off your first purchase. That's code PERFORMANCE at lagoonsleep.com/performance, whole 15% off, and the link is in the show notes. You can just click through there. For decades, running shoes have been researched, tested, and designed for men. Brands have relied on the shrink it and pink it approach to sell male shoes to female customers. That's why we are so excited to be working with Hedas. Hedas designs athletic footwear for women that elevates performance, safety, and style. Hedas unlocks the science behind women's biomechanics through dedicated research, creates better shoes for women that support their longevity and performance, and establishes new design standards to promote transparency in a male-biased industry. Hedas have a lower ankle collar to reduce rubbing, a breathable mesh toe box to allow for ventilation and to allow for female toe shape, a special kind of plate in the midsole to keep tired legs going, a narrow heel cup to reduce heel slippage and take the pressure off our Achilles, and a rounded instep to create a snug fit. Hedas has 3 shoe models designed for different sessions: the Alma Cruise for long runs, the Alma Tempo for training days, and the Alma Speed for pushing the pace. I've personally been running in the Alma Cruise and I love them. It's the shoe I always wanted and never knew I needed. The fit is perfect in every way. You can get your own pair of Hedas at hedas.com and use the code FEISTY20 for 20% off. That's FEISTY20 at hedas.com, and it will all be in the show notes.
And I wanted to, so we have a mutual friend and she mentioned that I know you used to own a yoga studio.
Yeah.
And that you got into doing some breath work with athletes. Can you tell us what that is?
For sure. So actually the breathwork piece started off kind of like from the yogic perspective and using it for like nervous system sort of regulation. And then I'm trying to remember, it was with Patrick McEwen. I just don't want to hack the name of what his training is. Can't remember off the top of my head. I can tell you later. But anyways, but did some breathwork training and then realized the like application there is from an athletic perspective. So we look at efficiency in so many things. Like you look at running form and economy and all these pieces. And I think breath is often overlooked. And the breath has so many different capacities. Like, again, whether that is like calming yourself before a big race or before a big challenging section, whatever it is, like you're going to tire out so much quicker if you're using, like if you're mouth breathing and you're using your accessory muscles to breathe, like you're going to put yourself into like way more of a sympathetic drive. It's going to be more taxing on your system. By not using those deep diaphragmatic breaths, you're like missing that connection with pelvic floor, deep core, like all these things. And that has an effect, like that has an effect on like your gait. It has an effect like on your feet. Like there's so many really cool interlocked pieces.
Yeah.
So like the breath is always like, it's such a foundational place to start from like, yeah, from a very, very like biomechanical perspective. And then also from nervous system, and you can kind of think about your nervous system is absolutely governing everything, right? Like your ability, like if I work with, increases your ability, like if you're nasal breathing, like for your CO2 tolerance and things like that, like again, coming back to like, you can do less with, or you can do more with less. So your body isn't tiring as quickly. You're not using as many resources. Like you're, like that system isn't putting on the governor and like stopping you, slowing you down, because it trusts and it knows that you can keep going sort of like in this capacity for longer.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It totally does. It's very interesting. Okay. Can you give us a few examples? So like if I am a runner, like how would I use breath work in my training to improve my economy?
So simplest thing you can start doing is like just thinking like your nose is for breathing, your mouth is for eating. Right? Like it can be so simple. Like if you're not like with the guidance of somebody who's like watching you breathe and that sort of thing, is just start breathing through your nose. So as you're walking, like an easy spin on the bike, that is the easiest place to start. And then sort of like progressing, like when I first started was, it was once I got to a brisk walk, it was harder to nasal breathe. And now like, I can be like pushing like up and towards zone 4 and still be nasal breathing.
And still be breathing through your nose. Interesting. Okay, so first of all, I think I'm a mouth breather. Like
most of us are. Yeah.
Right. Like I actually had that thought the other day. I was like, I'm breathing through my mouth a lot. What is happening? When I was in the middle of a workout. But then I do wonder like, because immediately when you said that, of course, I like close my mouth and start trying to breathe while I'm listening to you through my nose. Like I'm literally doing it in real time. And I immediately, even just sitting here, feel like I'm not getting enough air in. Like
totally. Okay.
Yeah. So what do I need to do?
Just keep like little dosage of breathing through your nose. So that's super like that air hunger and that like almost like panic that arises that you're like I got to suck in more air. Like you're actually not getting that much more oxygen saturation by like sucking air in through the mouth. And then you're also missing all these other important pieces of like, like your nostrils filtering the air that's coming in, warming the air. Like there's so many other bits and pieces. So it's totally normal that if you kind of feel like when you're starting that you're like, well, this isn't relaxing, like your heart rate actually like you kind of like tense and get agitated to start it, but it's just like little doses. That's what I'm saying. Like don't start running with like nasal breathing, like too much too soon.
Yeah.
Like sort of, when you're learning any new skill, it's like go slow to go fast, right? Like start walking. Something I do at night is I just take a little piece of like KT tape and it's like this big and I just put it over my mouth.
Oh yeah.
And so I can still talk like
when you sleep or just like hanging out in your house?
No, when I sleep.
Really?
Yeah. So then I'm forced to nasal breathe.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like my HRV goes up. My resting heart rate goes down 100%. My dental hygienist is like, you have no plaque. Your teeth are doing like, because you think about it, like if you're mouth breathing, like how much bacteria is coming in through the mouth, you're drawing out that oral cavity, again, connected to your gut microbiome, right? Like, so all these things, and it's such like simple, so I'm so passionate about it too, because it's like, there's so many applications of it. The buy-in is so low.
Right.
And it's like, and the effects are profound.
Huh.
The kicker is that you have to commit. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you unpack some of those effects? Like what? Like what for the central nervous system calming, like with some of the things that you mentioned.
Okay. So here's a really simple, like, and again, I'm painting this with like super duper broad strokes, but if you're like, you can even here, do you want to just do this with me? Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Listeners can join in too.
Okay.
Okay. We're all going to do it together.
Okay. So just to have this like sort of like embodied feeling in your body of what it feels like to mouth breathe versus nasal breathe. So I just want you to feel, I'm going to get you just to breathe in and out through the mouth. I'll do it too. And since we're on screen, you can kind of like watch and feel in your body, like what parts of your body are moving. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want you to switch to nasal breathing.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay, so what are you feeling?
Right. So with the mouth breathing, I felt like it was in my chest here, like I felt my
Yeah.
chest moving. But then as soon as it went to nasal breathing, the breath went deeper. That's the first thing I felt. Is that is that the right thing? There's probably no right or wrong here, but
Nailed it.
yeah, I felt that right away. It almost felt like, oh, I have to breathe deeper. Again, there was that little bit of sense of like, oh, I'm not getting enough air in. So it's I'm pulling down further or something. That was
Totally.
my sensation. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. When you are mouth breathing, you're using more chest, more accessory muscles. Nasal breathing, it brings you into using your diaphragm.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that often changes with it is the cadence of your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So often when we're mouth breathing, it tends to be shallow, which you felt.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be quicker. When we nasal breathe, it immediately brings it into slower.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you think about like, the really cool thing is that we have the ability to control our breath to, like when we're conscious of it, to have a different desired sort of like sympathetic or parasympathetic response. You can think about like if you're running from a bear, right? You're not going to be like,
Just to take a small example.
just like a normal everyday
Right.
thing, whatever. But you're not going to be nasal breathing. Your breath is going to be short and fast. You're going to be in that your sympathetic drive because
Right.
you're like, yes, my vision is narrowing. All that blood is like going into heart and lungs. Like I'm escaping this.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of think about it if you're eating or you're in the company of someone you really trust and love, or like you're relaxing before bed, like your breath pattern isn't going to be that really fast, shallow,
Right.
right? It's going to be deeper. Again, you're in that um, parasympathetic drive. So if you want to consciously switch, if you're in this, and that running from a bear could be like sort of a modern day or less extreme example is like you're running away from a bunch of emails that you need to respond to, or
Right.
taxes, or
Yeah.
your kids are just whatever it is, right? But like those sort of like modern day stressors,
Mm-hmm.
you can change your breath pattern to kind of like trick your body and mind that you're safe and okay, or to remind, not to trick, to remind your body. So when your exhales are longer than your inhales,
Mm-hmm.
it will help direct you into that parasympathetic rest and digest drive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you're in that drive, then you're like, oh yeah, like quite literally your vision expands, your ability to problem solve expands, right? Your creativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm feeling these things like you're saying it, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I used to, when I was an athlete, I worked with different types of mental coaches. And one of the things we would do that I still use with one of them was like to broaden my vision
Yes.
or if I'm having a particular hard moment, like you're climbing the hill on the bike, it's pretty hard, just broaden my vision so I can see like the whole road and the trees and then this, and then everything feels easier. So like what you're saying is related to that too, because you just said like with the breathing, your vision then broadens automatically. Like sometimes we're just like reverse engineering all the same things, right?
Absolutely. And I love that. And that's something, yeah, that I work with. I was talking about that client who has a really big trauma response with elevated heart rate. And that's one of the tools we use is being out and running exactly that. When we kind of feel that coming up, it's like consciously like opening up your field of vision, right? Taking in the landscape, like how much can we open up and see?
Yeah.
And like tapping into other senses. Okay, like what can we hear in this moment? Like what is the temperature of the air on our skin? Like those pieces.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I think it was before the show that we talked about
Oh, was it?
the
Okay.
client. Yeah, with the trauma
Yeah.
response. And I do want to hear about that because I think a lot of people will relate to it. Like,
Mm.
what were they experiencing and how did you work with them to overcome it?
For sure. So this was a client who really wanted to run and really wanted to have that freedom. But every time that they started running and their heart rate elevated, they would go into full, like basically panic attack.
Really, just from the elevated heart rate alone.
Yeah,
Interesting.
like very specific, like visuals would come into like, yeah, it was something that they were really working with. And so we started off like when we're kind of approaching the nervous system, I always like call it like, it's like that, the alley cat or like, like that feral cat, right? That you just like, you don't want to come in too hot, right? Like you come in too hot with your, with some sort of like trauma response, you're like, hey, we're going to fix this. Your whole
Mm-hmm.
system's going to retreat and come back.
Right.
So our approach with the running was we started off with 30 seconds walking, full 1.5 minute stop, full 1.5 minute stop. And we did some breath work techniques before we ran. And then we would come back. Everything was nasal breathing,
Mm-hmm.
1.5 minutes, full stop rest, coming back to the breath piece. And as we're doing the breath work, again, opening up our field of vision. And then again, we would walk 30 seconds, full stop, 1.5 minutes. And then just like progress from there. And then with that too, like it was such a cool opportunity to like put in other pieces and approaches, very much like you were talking about, like when you're going up a hill, right? And to like, so when we're approaching hills, and it had been a tendency for them in the past to compartmentalize. And I think we've like, if you've done athletics, like we've all played with this of just like push past, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
no pain, no gain, right?
Yeah.
Or to like shy away from sensation. And so we worked a lot on finding that sweet middle ground of like, yeah, acknowledging like this is harder, my heart rate, and acknowledging, yes, the heart rate is elevated. This is getting harder. I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety in my body, but trusting that the hill would end and that they would have the resources and the ability to reset and calm and move on. So
Mm-hmm.
now she's running, like we're doing 4 and 1s right now. So run 4 minutes, walk 1 minute, and has this experience of feeling freedom in her body. We get to be outside. She's like loving trail running, being in nature, feeling like a badass, running through puddles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the first time she's felt like freedom in her body in like 50 years. And like it makes me want to cry slash like such an honor to
Yeah.
partake in that, like in that journey and kind of like playing with that and figuring it out.
Yeah, what a fantastic story. Okay, I have a few more questions, but I want to ask, and you might not know the answer to this, but do you know how we ended up in a place where we're breathing out of our mouths? Like if we're designed to breathe out of our noses, or if that's better for us,
Mm.
why don't more of us do it naturally?
So this is kind of like the going theory. Like, and there's
Mhm.
really neat books like on, I can't think of the right word, but like, is it orthodontic? I don't know, but like dentistry. So the introduction of like soft food. So
Mhm.
we used to,
Oh,
yeah. So our jaws have gotten way smaller, way more crowded, slack because like we don't chew, we don't have like kind of think about like most of our food
right.
isn't like in its
It's like
natural kind of form,
pre-prepped. Yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that has changed the way, it's a use it or lose it thing, right? So if we're not exercising our jaws, so they, with kids and stuff like that, if they're not exercising their jaws, then again, like this is going to end up being a lot smaller.
Mhm.
The nasal passages are smaller.
Oh,
It's really,
right.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah, I see.
fascinating.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm wondering about like someone who might be interested in doing, like you talked about how you work with folks for running specifically, but
Mm.
what if I'm just like at rest, I want to do a little, or like I go to the sauna, for example. I'm
Yeah.
one of those people. I've jumped on the sauna
Sounds so
bandwagon.
good.
I also
Good.
like the occasional cold plunge. Um, and and then like and I see there's lots of people around me who do that kind of breath work, like in the sauna. Like if we want to do it at rest to like help calm our systems, what do you recommend, or do you have a pattern of breathing or something that we can focus on?
Yeah. So for starting out, I think making it really like you want to have like that right amount of friction of like it's doable, but you're kind of like pushing your edge a little bit. So again,
So
coming
when you
back
say pushing the edge, you mean to that feeling of not getting enough oxygen?
yeah, but just a
Is that
smidge.
the edge?
That is
Okay.
the edge, right? Like where you're
Okay.
just like this is fine, this is doable.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really get a massage, and you're like, it hurts so good.
Yeah.
Kind
Yeah.
of like that. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It totally does. Yeah.
So usually I'll have people like, because it depends on what their sort of like natural breath pattern is. So it could look something like, and again, this would be nasal breathing, inhaling for 4. And if exhaling is hard through the nose, people can like exhale through pursed lips. Because sometimes that can help you lengthen out your exhales a little bit more, but then exhaling out for maybe 6 counts.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Inhaling for 4. And as you inhale, I'll often get people to bring their hands, and I can't really see, but my hands are on my lower ribs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I inhale, feeling the lower rib cage expand and open.
Uh-huh.
Right. And then as you exhale, it draws back in. The other cool thing too is that this actually helps like fire up, and like you can find deep core pelvic floor with this too, which is a whole other cool application another time. But yeah, so inhale, expand the rib cage for a count of 4. As you exhale, nice and slow, count of 6, feel everything back in. So it can be subtle enough that you can do this anywhere. Like there's no cost to it. Breathing in and out through the nose, no one knows that you're doing it. You know, you can do this before a meeting. You can do it, yes, in the sauna.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm having kind of a realization here that like I think sometimes if I have a series of meetings during the day, because now I run this business and I'm hoping other people relate to this. That's why I'm going to continue with this story. But sometimes I come out of those meetings and I feel like I've been holding like my upper body a little bit, like even if it's a series of meetings with people that I really like. Right?
Yeah.
And I have this sense that like I shouldn't be holding that tension. I have no need to. I'm safe. I really like these people. Like I love these meetings. I love what we're doing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've been thinking about this over the last couple of weeks, and I think I interpreted it as that I'm more of an introvert than I thought I was. But actually, now that you're saying this, I'm like, actually, if I could just calm myself and center myself a little bit and feel more calm in my central nervous system, like starting the meeting, I would probably change my entire sort of posture and feeling about what's happening. Right? Am I right? Like, should I try this?
You should totally. And I think I think anytime there's a transition, it's really powerful. So trying it before your meeting, or if you have like one of those days where you're just like legit, it feels like you're running from one thing to the next. Like the buy-in can be small. Like this can be a minute.
Right.
A minute is still going to be effective.
So I'm hearing.
Like, whether you're just like, lock yourself in a bathroom stall for a minute and just do some breath work or whatever it is. But that will shift, like it'll shift like for what you're feeling in your body. It'll shift your sort of mental awareness. It'll definitely shift in how you're showing up.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
It's super cool.
Here we go. Amazing.
Endurance sports should be accessible to everyone, right? That's why we are so excited to be partnering with Motive. Motive is one of the fastest growing training apps in the world today, with thousands of amateur athletes signing up every month and a nearly perfect 4.9 star rating in the App Store. You are not a template, and your training plan should not be either. Prepare for running races, triathlons, cycling events, duathlons, or swim runs, however your season schedule shapes up, and get training written by some of the best coaches in the world in each discipline who know what it takes to help amateur athletes reach their goal on race day. The app takes the training written by those experts and then creates the most optimal training plan for your schedule, abilities, and goals. Plus, the training is fully customized to your race schedule, how much you can train each week, your current abilities, and the goals you want to achieve in your race. You can use the app for free as long as you want, or get all the upgraded features from the app for just $19.99 a month. But as a Feisty listener, you can sign up at mymotive.com and use the code Feisty for 2 months of full premium access. That's right, you get 2 months of premium for free. So you quite literally have nothing to lose. So head over to mymotive.com, mymotiv.com, and use the code Feisty, Feisty. And on a personal note, I know the founder of Motive, and he is driven to make triathlon and all endurance sports more accessible for the athletes who care about their performance, but who aren't quite ready for a full-time personal coach. If that sounds like you, definitely try the app for 2 months for free. You literally have nothing to lose. As a lifelong runner and triathlete turned CrossFitter, I am stoked to announce that the athletic eyewear brand Tifosi Optics has joined us as a partner here at Feisty Media. Tifosi sports glasses hit all the marks for athletes. They're shatterproof polybicarbonate, so the lenses not only reduce glare, but also offer scratch resistance, which I 100% need. They stay in place when you are moving. The hydrophilic rubber nose pads actually get more grippy the more you sweat, so they are secure and don't slide down your face even when you're running in hot conditions. No matter what sport you do, Tifosi has shades for you. Whether you love tennis, fishing, pickleball, running, cycling, or just hanging out on the beach. They are super reasonably priced, which I love, so I can have multiple pairs that go with any outfit. And of course, Feisty listeners get a special discount. So head on over to tifosioptics.com and use the code FM20. FM as in Feisty Media to get 20% off your order. That's FM20 at tifosioptics.com. I'll put a link in the show notes to make it easy for you.
Do you use breathing techniques for your adventure racing, and how do you include that?
Yeah. So anytime that I'm like, if I'm feeling scared, because there's often times where I'm like pooping my pants about something.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's
Like
like scarier than a meeting on Zoom. Yeah.
At one point in November, I had like a coral snake in the water. Like, I'm not a fan of snakes. Like snakes, no bueno.
Oh.
And then snakes in water, like extra creepy. And then a coral snake, which is like, that's no dice. Like, but swimming at my foot. So like we were going up a canyon and the snake is swimming at my face, like, 30 centimeters away.
Yeah.
And so just being able to recover from that, be like, and be calm in the moment too, where I'm like, snake, like, back it up. And then be conscious just to be like, okay, like after getting out of that situation, again, like softening, consciously coming back to breath. Okay, refocus, move on. So you're not stuck in that. Like, you just don't want to get stuck in that.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. Okay, I have a question. Question for a friend. This actually is for a friend who I was talking to last night, and she was telling me she'd signed up for this triathlon. And I won't out her who it is, but like and it's a triathlon where they take you out on a boat and drop you off, and then you like swim back to shore. Right?
Cool.
Yeah, and she said she Googled. She has like a more than healthy or higher level than most fear of open water. It gets worse in the ocean. And she made the mistake of Googling whether there were shark attacks in that area. And the answer was yes, someone had died like a couple of months ago. And now she literally was telling me she's thinking of calling it off, like of not going, because she recognizes not that it's not that she thinks her chances of being eaten by a shark are great, but that actually she's afraid that she's going to panic. Like that, because you jump off this boat and you have to swim, and she's like, I'm afraid I'm just gonna like freeze and not be able to do anything because I have this. However, illogical it is that she still has this fear. So what would you suggest for someone like that? Because I think I used to coach triathletes. There's a lot of people who have that like healthy or even beyond, like just a terrible fear of open water.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think it's like coming to terms of like anticipatory stress
Mhm.
is always worse and always harder than whatever the stress is in actuality. Right? Like if you think about that in any part of your life, right? Like the pre-race anxiety or like the amount of time that she's already spent on like worrying about analyzing, researching,
Mhm.
right? Like that whole time your system's in this like heightened
Yeah.
state is more time than it would take her to swim that section, right? Does
Yes.
that make
Yes.
sense?
Definitely. Yeah.
So again, I'm like each to their own and figure out like what is the cost worth it for her, I think is one thing.
Mhm.
But I think it's just like realizing like coming into that like I don't know, for me mantra is helpful of just like one of my mantras is like trust the process, what will be will be.
Mm.
And for me that's like okay, like what do I have control over? I have control over my training, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I have control over exposing myself to open water in preparation like for this race and to like slowly, like getting more comfortable in open water. And there's some really cool resources on fear too,
Mhm.
um, and cool books, which I'll try and remember the names of them. Um, so you have control over that piece. You have control over your breath and how you have control over your mind, right?
Mhm.
So you have control to be like, okay, like I get it. Like I have this fear, but I'm still going to enter like into the water and do this thing. And that trust of like, just like the trusting the process. Like you're basically controlling, like I am not a fan of David Goggins by far, but I remember a quote of his was like, I think it was him that was like, control the controllables.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, actually, like, I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
I'll give you
Mhm.
that one,
Yeah.
like,
Occasionally he says something good. Yeah.
right. but like but that's pretty legit. It's like control the
Mhm.
controllables and then you have to kind of like let go of that anticipatory
Mhm.
fear because otherwise you're never going to move forward, right?
Mhm.
Like at some point it's just going to happen and like chances are it's actually going to be totally a-okay.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah, absolutely.
kind of
Feel that.
answer?
Totally. Very helpful. And I also was thinking about how I was like, oh yeah, again, like if you start with breath work and you can start calmer than you otherwise would. Right.
100%. And you practice
Mhm.
those things again. There's that, like building up to it, right? Like being smart, like I honestly think like the nervous system training, just as you would like progressively overload and build in your training plan, right? And in those blocks, the same thing you're doing with like nervous system and those pieces, right? That you are building up. So then when it comes to like game day, you're like, this is familiar,
Yeah.
right? Like I've got my butterflies, but I can like get these butterflies in formation. Like I can meet this demand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Love it. Okay. Is there anything else we should know that I haven't asked, like related to breath work?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of resources out there now, which is great. Like if people are interested, I think one of the best resources that is out right now is I think it's Breath by James Nestor. Like that's a book or audiobook that's worth picking up. Can go into things a bit more detail. But the other thing is just to start. Like, don't discount the small things.
Mhm.
Like, don't discount trying to, you
I
know,
can back that up because I can feel it right now. From literally what we just did. Yeah. So,
so cool. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. It all counts.
It all counts. Cool. And I understand that you are preparing for an adventure right now, or that you're heading
Yeah.
out soon. Mhm.
Oh yeah. I'm like, so first time racing on an all Canadian team and the first time racing on an all women's team,
Woo. Yeah.
the Uterati.
That's what it's called.
That's the name of our team.
The Uterati.
Yeah.
I love it.
So good. And it's super cool. This race that we're doing, it's by the same race director as the last one I did in November. So it's not as long, like it's a max 48 hours race. But their female participation for this adventure race is at 43%.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That's amazing. Yeah.
And they started off, I asked him, they started off in 2017 and they were at 4% female. And they've built it up to 43% now.
Wow. Do you know how or what's
Yep.
shifted? Yeah.
They offer 50% off registration fees for all women.
Oh,
So it doesn't matter
wow.
if you're racing on a mixed gender team, whatever. They work really hard to do courses beforehand and create a safe space for women to learn and to be in the mountains and develop the skills. And their social media, like it was lighting me up before I even knew all these things like about the race. I'm like, wow, like they're featuring a lot of women. So like women were
Right.
visible. And then they have like badass like women on their ropes teams, like in their organization, like women are visible. Women are in leadership positions. They have listened. I just think that's just the coolest thing ever.
That is amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
the 50% off is
That's
wild.
huge.
Is it still like that? Like, was that at first just to encourage more women to come in, or is that just stood?
I think that was to encourage more women to come into the sport.
Yeah.
And that stands for like this race that they've like kept that up, which I think is unreal because I've never seen that in any other race I've done. Like it's lucky if women are like 25%.
Right.
Lucky.
And where is this race?
It's in Mexico. It's La Ruta Madre.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, in
Oh,
Monterey.
amazing. Oh, I've been to Monterey.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I did a triathlon in Monterey.
Nice.
In the center of town, there's a giant fountain, and it's like 2 kilometers long. And
Oh,
I've never
seriously?
done this in yeah, we swam in a fountain.
In a fountain?
Yes. And you had to avoid, it had all these features, that they had turned off so it wouldn't spray on you, but there were still like cement things just like suddenly in the middle of the course, like that were marked that you had to watch out for. Yeah. And it was really great for beginners because it was only like waist deep.
Yeah.
So you could, like, you weren't technically allowed to walk, but you could get a special pass to like have stops if you needed for people who were beginner swimmers. You could just
You
stand
could
up.
like stop and stand up, take a breath.
But then they had to, yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah. Anyway, that was my experience in Monterey. But I'm sure yours is going to be much different. What things do you do during the race? Like
This will be canyoneering, mountain biking, and trekking.
Okay.
Yeah. And just like a lot of like I didn't realize the mountains there. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
Like the elevation gain throughout the race. Crazy. Yeah. So I think it's like this one's shorter, but I think it's still like 6,000 meters gain over the race. And
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But excited to have a couple days off like after the race. So I want to go check out the fountain.
Now go see that.
Maybe I'll get a breaststroke for you.
I think something told me that like the rest of the year there's probably no swimming in the fountain. I'm thinking
frowned upon. Will you be in the
That's a guess. I don't know.
That's fair.
You could try.
Right?
That could be part of your adventure. Try not to get arrested in Mexico. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. This has been so fun. Good luck with your race. And thanks for teaching us about breathwork. I'm going to implement this today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it.